Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 13. Returning Home. Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet? No. Are we there yet? No. Zabuza turned to Naruto behind him, hand twitching towards his Zanbeitu. Kid, stop that now, before I hurt you. Naruto only chuckled in response. Too late. Before he fell flat on his face, a single senbon sticking out of his ass. Zabuza turned to Haku, an eyebrow raised questioningly. Haku nodded. Pressure points. Temporary, induces a mild dream state. Bacon ramen crystal fireplace poker fetish. Make that hallucinogenic fever dream state. Kakashi just shrugged. Don't worry about him, he'll be fine here in a little while. Someone grab him so he doesn't get left behind. And yes, you can drag him if you want. Sasuke perked up at that, and no, not by his feet. His expressions fell. You can however grab him by the hair. You couldn't run fast enough to keep up with the black and blue blur along with the black and yellow blur being dragged quickly behind it. Konoha gates. You guys are assholes. Naruto rubbed the top of his head gently, wincing a couple times as he felt the small patches of his hair that were torn out regenerate slowly. Next time learn to shut up. Sasuke smirked, getting in his own way, a measure of revenge on Naruto for putting him through that hell he called chakra nature training. Naruto snorted. I wouldn't laugh if I were you, there's still 2 more levels of chakra nature training I've yet to teach you or Sakura. That shut him up. Sasuke paled slightly and turned away from him, walking slightly faster than the rest of them. Naruto could only grin at the payback he'd bring down on the Uchiha's head. However, that grin turned into a frown when he noticed Sakura was oblivious to the threat he'd not so subtly hinted at. It was going to be quite a while before the girl truly opened back up to anyone. It had taken him some time getting over killing those villagers when he had obtained his powers. He had mostly just drowned it all in training, but Sakura didn't have that luxury. He could tell by the far-off look in her face that the life she took was still weighing heavy on her mind. A few minutes passed in silence as they signed in at the gate and walked into Konoha, the 2 gate guards Kotetsu and Izumo eyeing Zabuza warily. Don't worry guys. Naruto waved to them. Zabuza here is going to be joining the village. Both sets of eyebrows rose at this. Just how the hell did you manage that? Izumo asked. Yeah, doesn't seem right if you ask me. Kotetsu nodded. PFF'd, well, I kicked his apprentice's ass for one. He pointed over his shoulder at Haku. And I impressed him enough to convince him to join. That's about it honestly. Wait. That little shrimp is his apron. Kotetsu's words were cut off by a senbon striking the wooden beam of the check-in box next to his head. Yeah, don't do that. She's about as bad as Anko. The 2 Chunin paled and stared at the young girl who raised an eyebrow, daring them to say anything more. This was when Zabuza broke into the conversation. Wait, Anko. The Anko Mitarashi. There was clear interest in his voice. Yeah, Naruto laughed. She was my sensei for a little over 5 years. Zabuza gawked, then let out a loud laugh. Ha ha ha. No fucking wonder I like you, kid. And slammed a meat hook of a hand on the blonde's back. You think she'd go on a date with me? Naruto's face went blank for a moment before he turned a small glare on Zabuza, a bit of ki filling the air. Zabuza looked down curiously. Naruto leaned in close so the others couldn't hear and whispered evenly, I like you, Zabuza, I really do, but that's not something you say to the husband of the woman you just mentioned. Zabuza's eyes widened even wider than the last time. What? You heard me? Naruto glared. Zabuza stood there for a moment just staring in awe at the young genin. A cough broke the staring contest as he looked over at Kakashi. Anything wrong? The silver-haired Jonin asked. Kakashi. Zabuza asked quietly. Kakashi nodded for him to continue. You remember when the kid reached don't fuck with status? Kakashi nodded again, this time to agree. With the mist nin. Well, he's just went up another level. Quote. Kakashi looked from Zabuza to Naruto and back again. Do I want to know? Zabuza just shook his head and walked off, walking towards the Hokage building, Haku not far behind him. What did you tell him, Naruto? Kakashi sighed, a slight headache starting to build. Oh, just that Anko's status as single has been changed for quite some time now. He let out a little perverted grin at the Jonin, and had it been any other time he'd have felt proud for some odd reason, but now he could only stare blankly at the youth. Hey, well, I guess we should go to see the old man now. Naruto glanced at his teammates for a moment, noting that Sasuke had walked off a while ago to go do whatever the hell he did in his off time, while Sakura just stood there staring off into space. Naruto frowned at that and held up a hand seal, creating a shadow clone. On second thought, here, Kakashi, take this shadow clone with you. I gotta do something. The clone walked over to Kakashi while the real Naruto approached Sakura. Kakashi watched Naruto talk with Sakura for a moment. The way the girl brightened a bit during their little chat sent a bit of hope through the Jonin, who'd noticed the way the girl was starting off into space. Shaking his head a couple times, he sighed and rushed to catch up to Zabuza, mumbling something along the lines of, "Lucky son of a bitch." Naruto's clone chuckling along behind him. Naruto noticed Kakashi and his clone leave, as he turned back to Sakura, "So meet me at the Akamaiki restaurant tonight at 6, okay?" He let out a little smile when Sakura brightened a bit, nodded and told him she'd see him then. As she walked off, he couldn't help but notice the little bit of spring in her step again. Naruto's smile turned south into a frown though as he went over their conversation. Sakura was in a deep funk, despite how she felt about the date he had sprung on her. Hell, that alone had tipped him off at how much that kill had affected her. He'd asked her on a date before. Sure, it was just a simple lunch date to get to know each of his classmates, but Sakura had brushed him off pretty easily. Seeing her like this now just made him feel sick. He had to help her get over this, and if he had to go on a date with her or something even further, then he'd suck it up and do it. "Uzumaki-sama," a voice asked respectfully. What now?" Naruto glanced over his shoulder to see a pair of pale lavender eyes staring at him. "I take it Hiyashi-san wants to see me." At the branch members' nod, Naruto sighed and followed along behind the man as he made his way towards the Hyuga compound with the Naruto clone. "Ah, there you are, Kakashi. The mission went well, I take it." "It went rather well, Hokage-sama." Kakashi nodded, then went through the arduous task of debriefing the Hokage of all the events that transpired in Wave, the Naruto clone, breaking in and giving his point of view when it was needed. I see. That is quite a little adventure you and your team went on, Kakashi-san. Now that the boring part is over, let us get down to business, shall we?" At the agreeing murmurs from the room's occupants, Sarutobi's face hardened a bit. "Zabuza Momochi, Haku Momochi. You wish to join the Leaf Village, is that correct?" The two nodded. Sarutobi sighed. "You do realize the shitstorm that's going to come from Mizu over this, right?" "Not likely." Zabuza grumbled. "How so? Why wouldn't Mizu want back one of its 7 swordsmen? If not for the warrior or his weapon, then simply to collect the bounty on the man's head." Sarutobi glared at the man, making it clear that the coup d'état that he had planned was common knowledge. That's going to follow me everywhere, isn't it?" Zabuza groaned. "The only reason I did that was because of the bastard Mizukage. The bastard started the bloodline civil war and had to be stopped. It's only my shame that follows me now, since I couldn't kill the fucker myself." Haku looked up at her adoptive father in shock. "What do you mean, Zabuza-sama?" Zabuza turned to regard his apprentice and daughter in all but blood. The intel from Gato's manifests coming from Mizu painted a pretty picture on the current state of the country. The Mizukage was killed almost a year ago by the resistance cells in the country. A woman named Meitarumi runs the place now. "But Zabuza-sama, she's..." Haku began. He sighed. "Yeah, I know." Sarutobi took a puff of his pipe. "Oh, just what do you know about that woman, Zabuza-san?" Zabuza didn't say anything for a while. You could tell he was mulling things over, debating on whether or not he should say anything, but he just resolved himself, since he'd have to say this eventually anyway. He started slowly, "was my teammate, along with Yagura. You know him as the 4th Mizukage." Those who didn't know that fact were surprised by that statement. Zabuza had fought alongside the 4th and now 5th Mizukage. An interesting development for sure. "So your coup d'état wasn't a grab for power but a liberation of your friend's tyranny?" Kakashi mused. "Yeah, and I thought my time as a shinobi was fucked up." Quote. Yes, yes, we can all talk about our mental scarring due to our profession later. Right now we have business to attend to. Sarutobi pulled out several papers. Now that I have the full story on this, and seeing as there is a minimal chance of Mizu getting involved, I think it's safe to call you both Leaf Shinobi. He pulled 2 headbands from his desk and tossed them to the 2 mist nin. I will however have Anbu keep an eye on you two for the next 3 months, strictly protocol. I'm sure you understand. The 2 nodded. Hey old man. Yes Naruto. I'd just like to point out that Zabuza and Haku are under my clan's protection. Since Zabuza has a treasure weapon and Haku has a bloodline, it would be a safe bet that the council will start sticking their noses in my friend's business. Sarutobi readily agreed to that. The council, at least the civilian portion, was still as snooty as ever, though they had become less of an annoyance as of late. They still could cause trouble now and again. Naruto's eyes narrowed dangerously. If the council starts raising hell, tell them they're under my protection. That should sway the shinobi council and shut the civilians up. That it will. I must say Naruto, I'm starting to feel my age when I see how much you've grown. Sarutobi grinned at the blushing blonde whose face colored just slightly at the praise. Hey, you used to be so childish Naruto. It's times like these I wonder where the hell the years went. Wait. Back up. You used to be childish. Zabuza stared incredulously at the blonde, breaking out into a bark of laughter at the thought. That I'd have paid to see. Yes, he was quite the loudmouthed little brat, but that's just his mother's mean streak showing through honestly. Sarutobi chuckled when Naruto let out a little huff of annoyance. Apparently he wasn't quite grown up yet. That brought a little grin to the wizened Kage's face. Who was his mother? Zabuza asked. Sarutobi glanced over at Naruto for a moment, seemingly getting his permission. Seeing the slight nod, the man continued. She was a fiery woman, even her husband was scared of her, and I can tell you now he was whipped beyond all manner and reason. He took a pipe from his mouth, eyes glazed a bit remembering the woman in her prime. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. Zabuza choked and spun so quickly it almost didn't seem like he'd moved. He grabbed the blonde by his black shinobi shirt, almost tearing the material, and lifted him off the ground so they were eye to eye. Your mother was the bloody Red Death. His voice was frantic and strained. Sarutobi rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I had almost forgotten that was her name outside the village, fitting I guess for someone nicknamed the Red Hot-Blooded Habanero. Zabuza's eyes bugged as he dropped Naruto. His head snapped towards Kakashi. Kakashi Yeah, I know. Another level. With the original Naruto, now Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was many things. A coward was not one of them, but staring up at the impressive gate of the Hyuga compound and the dozen armed Hyuga branch members lining the walls put him on edge. The Hyuga compound was never this guarded, he should know. He had pranked the hell out of the place, not counting Hinata. After that one time that Hyuga Anbu, best not to say anything, they're probably still sore over that incident. Actually, that may be why they're so guarded right now. Naruto's sweat dropped heavily, wondering for a moment if he was the cause for so many guards. After he had passed the gates, he still felt the oppressive feel of a dozen sets of eyes boring into his back. Glancing out of the corner of his eye, he noticed they hadn't turned around to look. They're still pissed at me. Damn Byakugan. An unconscious little shiver went up his spine. It wasn't the Byakugan that was bothering him. Hell, he'd be the first to admit that those eyes looked sexy as hell on Hinata, but when anyone else looked at him with those eyes, they were cold, like ice. He chalked it up to their personalities as a whole being the same way and left it at that. They passed through the clan gardens and several training grounds before they reached the compound proper. The main house, in all its imposing glory, a traditional Japanese style mansion would be an appropriate description for the place, but he wasn't there to see the sights. He was there for business, and the man he was meeting held the leash so to speak on the woman who he had come to respect and even to some degree love in the short time they had been together. The two entered the main building, going room by room until they reached a simple wooden door unlike the sliding paper doors that adorned the outside. Opening it revealed a study with bookshelves lining every wall and a single Japanese-style table in the center. The branch member bowed respectfully and left, closing the door behind him. Welcome Naruto-san. A voice evenly greeted him. Naruto turned to see the Hyuga head sitting at the table which moments before had been empty. "Hello Hiyashi-san, it's good to see you again." The niceties were a given in this situation and he sure as hell didn't want to piss off Hinata's dad. "Come, sit, we have much to discuss." The man waved him over gently but firmly. As soon as Naruto sat down he felt a wave of, it wasn't killing intent, he could tell that much, but looking up he did notice Hiyashi sporting a hard gaze, and like all Byakugan users, it was only magnified by said bloodline. "What are your plans for my daughter?" Naruto could only blink. "Straight and to the point, I see. Well, I guess I could answer the same." He looked directly in the Hyuga's eyes. "I plan on marrying her, Hiyashi-san." Hiyashi's eyebrows rose into his hairline, a significant show of emotion for the normally emotionless Hyuga, which spoke volumes how much that statement had surprised him. "Well, I didn't think you would be so forward with such information. You asked wanting a straight answer and I gave it to you. I try not to beat around the bush when someone wants an answer like that from me." Hiyashi nodded. "A good trait to have, and it's served you well now." Hiyashi let out a breath that Naruto hadn't realized he'd been holding. "I can honestly say that I consent to the union." Naruto nearly fell over at that. What? He expected anger, perhaps yelling and threats, not calm acceptance and certainly not his blessing. "You know as well as I do about Hinata's problems." Naruto let out a little growl at the tone Hiyashi took when he said that word, which surprised Hiyashi quite a bit. "He's already that protective of her? Interesting." Hiyashi coughed to cover himself. "What I mean is that many of the elders have, for a long time now, viewed Hinata as an incapable clan heir, and I for one agree with them." A spike of killing intent followed that statement and Hiyashi made quick work of covering his ass. "I didn't mean it like that, Naruto-san." The killing intent lessened a bit. "Hinata has always been exceedingly kind. She's always put her friends first among her priorities, and while that is a noble practice, it's quite contrary to how we run the Hyuga clan, where we place clan affairs above all else." The Hyuga clan head folded his hands together in front of him. "I'm afraid she'd be a poor leader of the Hyuga clan, but she is a good person as a whole." Hiyashi sighed. "She merely doesn't have the conviction to do the things I would, the hard choices as it were." Naruto looked pensive, all ill will gone at the moment, trying to figure what game Hiyashi was playing at. Getting tired of racking his brain, he just asked him, "So what's the catch? For all this, you've called me here and actually approve of me and Hinata being together. Don't you have anything to say at all?" "Anything?" Hiyashi was beginning to get a headache from all this. Succumbing to simple human weakness, he let his shoulders relax and sent a hand northward to rub the spot between his eyes, trying in vain to quell the ache this was causing him. "Look, Naruto," the Hyuga said, dropping all forms of decorum and speaking plainly for once. "For years now I've tried my best to raise my daughter. I know I've done a piss-poor job of it, and Hinata has all rights to hate me for the way I've treated her, but I've always tried my hardest to push her to be better, to grow." The Hyuga sighed once more. "If only my wife Hitomi was still alive today, then maybe." Naruto chuckled slightly. "Hitomi. A name given to those with beautiful eyes. Fitting in a way, I guess." Hiyashi smiled. Yes, even among the Hyuga, Hitomi's eyes shone brightly, not holding the cold glaze that is present in the others of the clan. "A trait my daughter shares with her mother." The Hyuga leaned back in a more relaxed position. "The elders heard of your dating, and have expressed their want for Hinata to be married to you. Most of them still see you as the demon, but they can't deny your bloodlines or that Hinata is a lost cause, as they called it. So they're trying to make the most of the situation and marrying her off to you. They aren't forcing you, but all things considered they might as well be." Naruto frowned. He hated being used, and he hated his friends being used even more than that. This little power play was as devious and underhanded as you could be, selling out your own family for political power. It was sickening. "And why are you agreeing with them? You could just as well tell them to fuck off. You're a clan head, they're just advisors and elders. Do what the Hokage did and put your foot down. It's not gonna change the fact that Hinata and I are going to get married, but it sure as hell will show them you are the leader of this place, not those annoying old fossils." Hiyashi was already shaking his head. No, Naruto, this is one of those things that no one man can change. This clan is run differently than most, the branch family is just the tip of the iceberg, and the elders may just be my arms and hands, but that doesn't mean they can't choke the head if given enough incentive. He waved a hand around a bit to accent the metaphorical scenario. Just know that I consent to the marriage along with most of the elders. I may not like it, but I have to look at it this way, she would have been married off anyway at some point. Might as well have it be the son of a man who I greatly respect, and you, who I now respect in your own right. He nodded his head respectfully at the blonde. You would walk into the home of a disgruntled father and tell him you plan to marry his daughter, not even flinching when I layered on a fair dose of Hyuga brand killing intent on you. You might not know it, but that takes guts and balls of a size I don't care to measure. He reached out a hand to shake. Naruto grasped it firmly, the two holding the shake for a time before Hiyashi spoke again. But if you hurt her, I will juken you in a place that even the Kyuubi can't heal, you understand? Naruto paled slightly along with Kyuubi in his mindscape. The two nodded, one visibly, the other not so much. Good. -2 hours later, Akamaiki family restaurant. Naruto stood in front of the restaurant, waiting for Sakura. He had gone back to Anko's place to wash and slip into something more comfortable, switching out his armor and ninja gear for a mixture of shinobi and civilian clothing. A plain orange button-up t-shirt and dark gray Anbu pants which his tail was still stuffed into since he really didn't like showing the thing off. His fox ears were pinned under one of his homemade hats. He had found he liked the dapper look with the beret-esque piece of headwear. This particular one was black with a bit of aesthetic flair, a small red Uzumaki swirl sewn into the front of it. Of course, just because he was dressed casually didn't mean he wasn't armed to the teeth. A pair of small and intricate seals were tattooed to the boy's arms, a triumph in the boy's mind at how his sealing abilities were progressing. Within the seals lied a full assortment of kunai and shuriken, as well as one seal on the back of his neck that contained a standard Anbu ninjutsu. Standard weaponry, sure, but undeniably effective. A slight tap of footsteps alerted him to his date's arrival. He turned to greet Sakura but froze as his jaw hit the floor. He had said to dress casual, and that's how he usually preferred it, but Sakura, she, just, damn. In front of him was a goddess in human form. Sure, she didn't have the figure of someone like Anko or even Hinata for that matter, but her outfit more than made up for it. Slitted blue eyes roved over her for a moment, taking in every jaw-dropping detail. Her pink shirt was cut along the midriff to show off surprisingly defined abs and a somewhat curvy waist. The plunging neckline of the shirt was tastefully accented by a small cherry blossom-shaped pendant. Now normally he'd have objected to how risque the V in her shirt would have been, but he noticed that in lieu of a bra she had chosen to wrap her chest with bandages, the soft white of the bandages accenting the pale red cloth of the shirt. His gaze went south for a moment to take in the sight of her shorts, which, despite the provocative nature of her shirt, were rather plain in comparison. Just a casual pair of denim jeans cut off at just above the knees and a pair of tennis shoes finished off the ensemble. After a moment of staring, he noticed she had several earrings in each of her ears as well, each stud accented with a pale green gem that matched her eyes wonderfully. Not that you could really see the earrings, he realized, as she had removed her headband, which let her hair fall into a cascade of pink. In the process of rolling up his jaw, he made a vow to do this kind of thing again. If all women dressed up like this when going out on a date, he'd definitely have to do this again. Naruto smiled at Sakura opening the door to the restaurant and gesturing inside. Ladies first, he chuckled. Well, shouldn't you be going in before me then? She joked, a small smile on her face. Oh, you wound me, fair princess. Naruto mock grabbed his chest in pain before joining her in a chuckle. Attention neither knew had been there, disappearing as the two walked into the restaurant. The first thing to hit was the smell. Being run by the Akamaiki gave the place a pedigree unmatched anywhere in Fire Country. The food was rich, yet affordable, and the service was courteous and friendly, with waiters and waitresses often spending time talking with the guests, helping them feel at home. The second thing they noticed was that the place was nearly empty. Having come between lunch and dinner, they just missed break time for the ninja teams and hadn't quite made it to the end of a hard day's training meal. That didn't mean there wasn't anyone there. In fact, there were several people that both Naruto and Sakura recognized. One such group was Team 10, or Ino, Shikamaru and Choji along with Asuma their sensei. Naruto, Sakura, Ino yelled merrily, her hair flipping around in her haste to get up to greet them. Oh Kami, Ino, Naruto groaned mentally, one of the few people, girls of his age group in particular, that had caught Naruto's interest when it came to other potential wives. When they had first met, that wouldn't have even been considered given her crush on Sasuke, but Naruto had found out in short order that after he had landed Sasuke on his ass during their first meeting, he had left an impression on quite a few of the girls in his class, Ino being one of his fans. His fans. He didn't even know he had fans until a group of a dozen or more girls flocked around him during break one day. That incident had almost turned deadly. Good thing he kept a spare change of clothing on him at all times. He really needed to invest in some tougher clothing. He really couldn't afford to have them ripping his clothes off at every given chance. But that was then, this was now, and Ino had that fangirl look in her eyes again. Although she hadn't tried to declothe him, she had flashed quite a few sets of bedroom eyes his way, not to mention her constant come-ons she seemed to throw his way. If she wasn't such a fangirl, he might have considered it, but as of right now she was still a fangirl, and that was a bad mindset to be in. Oh, but don't think that made her weak. Due to finding out her crush liked self-sufficient women, she had taken to upping her training to try and get his attention. The results being, her body was as fit if not more so than Sakura's, and he had been personally training Sakura for the past month and a half. Asuma waved at the two, flagging them towards the table. Hey, why don't you two join us? We just sat down for some barbecue. Naruto looked over at Sakura for a moment, an unasked question on his face. Sakura just smiled and nodded slightly, taking a seat next to Shikamaru, leaving a space for Naruto to sit next to her, which he gladly took. The group chatted idly until Choji brought up the fact that the two of them were together outside of a mission, and asked if they were dating. Well, yeah, it is kind of a date. Naruto laughed uncomfortably as he noticed Ino's frown, but it's just a friendly date between teammates, kinda like what you guys are doing. Oh, that's good, Ino smiled, as their waiter brought them several helpings of meat so that they could cook on the little grill in the center of the table. The waiter also laid a basket of bread down next to Naruto. Ino perked up at that, a mischievous smile on her face. Hey Naruto, could you pass me a roll? Sure Ino. You want butter on it? At the affirmative nod, he grabbed one of the rolls and spread a small bit of butter on it, handing it over to the other blonde. Now normally that would have been it, but Ino saw fit to throw another one of her dirty one-liners into the mix. A good man always knows how to butter a woman's muffin, she giggled, taking a bite out of the bread. Naruto groaned and smacked his head into the table, hard. Asuma and Choji choked, one on his cigarette, the other on a piece of meat he had been eating. Troublesome, Shikamaru sighed, beating on the back of his friend to dislodge the offending chunk of food. Sakura. She just turned away from everyone, a pained look on her face. Naruto noticed the look on Sakura's face immediately. Scowling, he turned to Ino and glared, Ino, a word please. He stood up and walked towards the front of the restaurant, forcing Ino to follow quickly or get left behind. Once the two were outside, Ino huffed, just what the hell is your problem, Naruto? It was just a joke. My problem, Ino, is that Sakura took offense to it, and right now anything that affects Sakura affects me. Oh, so you are dating then? Ino leveled a glare at the man, a twinge of jealousy touching her voice. No Ino, we're not. He sighed again. He'd have to tell her sooner or later, rather now and be done with it than later and have her beat his ass for not telling her what happened to her friend. Sakura was very nearly raped and killed on our last mission, Ino. Ino's eyes flew wide. What? She gasped in disbelief. Yes, it's true. She's spent the last week nearly mute, barely saying anything to anyone. I've only just recently gotten her talking. Your little comment may have only sought to get a rise out of me, but it also was a little too sexual for Sakura. The last time someone even mentioned anything close to sex, she actually flinched and wouldn't talk to anyone for the rest of the day. Right about then, Ino was feeling terrible about herself. the fact that she had hurt her best friend, even indirectly, hurt her more than she thought it would. "I'm sorry," she whimpered. "I didn't know." Knowing something and doing it are two different things, Ino. You knew it would make me and everyone around you uncomfortable and yet you did it anyway. And it's not me you have to be sorry to. He gave her a pointed glance. Ino sniffled a few times before nodding, the two of them walking back inside. Surprisingly, Ino took Naruto's spot at the table, burying her head into her friend's chest and hugging her tight. It was one of the worst fears of a kunoichi to be raped on a mission. Sakura had experienced that fear firsthand and Ino had just reminded her of it. She whispered, "I'm sorry," insistently into the girl's chest wraps, soaking the material with what tears the girl was shedding. Sakura was uncomfortable with how close the woman was to her. She looked to Naruto across from her and noticed that he wouldn't look her in the eye as he mouthed, "Just let her." Sakura nodded and wrapped the girl in a hug, a few tears of her own working their way into the Yamanaka's hair. Needless to say, the three other men at the table were confused at this sudden change in Ino, but when they noticed the glare that Naruto was leveling their way, they thought it best to leave the matter to the girls, who were handling it rather well considering. After the tearful moment between the girls, the meal was eaten in relative silence. Afterwards, Ino and Sakura said goodbye to everyone. Naruto watched the two leave and saw Sakura glance over her shoulder at him. A small smile spread across her face as she mouthed a "thank you." Naruto smiled back and nodded. "What was that about?" Asuma asked, walking out of the restaurant with Shikamaru and Choji next to him. "It's not my place to say, Asuma-san. The only reason I told Ino was because she was friends with Sakura." He let out a weary sigh. "I will say this though, this world is dangerous. For a shinobi, kunoichi even more so, and there are times where close calls require a last resort." Without another word he turned and walked away. Shikamaru and Asuma grimaced and looked back to the two distant girls. They could guess where he was going with that, a kunoichi's worst fear and the last resort to take care of it. Yeah, they could imagine. The three men said goodnight to each other and walked back to their homes, respecting Sakura's privacy over the matter. "Ooh, what do you mean they're staying here?" Anko growled, none too pleased by the fact that a certain pair of mist nin were crashing at her tower. Naruto sighed. "It's exactly as I said, until they have enough money to buy themselves a place they're under our care." Anko rubbed her head in irritation, a headache beginning to form. "And just why are we doing this again?" "Because Haku is my cousin Anko." Anko raised an eyebrow in surprise, looked from Haku to Naruto and back again, "On whose side? And how close a cousin are we talking about?" "Mother's side, and I'm pretty sure it's distant. The Uzumaki and Yuki clans are cousin clans to begin with, and even if I'm related to Haku, it's maybe fourth or fifth cousin, possibly a couple times removed as well. So it would be okay if you two fucked then." Anko mused, tapping her chin idly with a finger. Naruto let out a choked sound halfway between a gasp and a gag, Haku blushing up a storm next to him and Zabuza laughing his ass off. Oh, how he enjoyed people like Anko. "Why the hell are you asking me that?" Naruto griped, pointing an accusing finger at Anko. "Well, even I can tell the girl has the hots for you. Have you popped her the question yet?" Naruto's jaw dropped, finger going slack along with his jaw. Haku blushed an even deeper shade of red while Zabuza actually stopped laughing and stared, shocked at the woman's gal. Anko had to stifle a giggle but continued her line of questioning. "I know you've thought about it, and Hinata didn't complain when you asked her to be your wife as well." Zabuza's eyes widened at the implications. This brat was not only married to the snake mistress Anko but someone else as well. Wait, how the hell are you married to two women?" he asked, shocked. Anko cast a glance his way, Naruto still in too much shock to answer. "He's a CRA participant, since he's the last of two separate clans and a wielder of several powerful bloodline traits, and considering I own this tower and the land around it, he's now a man of considerable land holdings through me, so he is more than capable of marrying more than one woman to revive his clans." Zabuza was actually speechless at this. He had never heard of that before and said as such to the snake woman. "You haven't heard of it because the last time it was used was after the First Shinobi World War to shore up the members lost to the major clans of Konoha." Anko rubbed her chin in thought. Hell, I think it was the old man Hokage who actually started the damn thing after a good 40% of the village's ninja were killed off. I think the current heads of the Aburame, Inuzuka and Yamanaka clan were born from that sort of arrangement. Zabuza turned to Naruto, who was just coming out of his daze. Kid, you are one of the luckiest bastards I know of. Anko began, leaning over slightly to look at the girl eye to eye, a small smirk on her face. If Naruto did ask you to marry him, would you? Haku's face turned a deep shade of crimson as she pondered the question, averting her eyes from the seductive snake Kunoichi. Who, she noticed, didn't wear a bra under her mesh shirt. I don't know, maybe. Anko, don't try forcing her into something, you know my policy on this. I gave Hinata a choice and she took it. Haku has that same choice, but it's up to her if she wants to. He turned to address Haku, and that choice will always be open to you. It's not like there's a time limit to this sort of thing. So take some time to get to know me and decide for yourself. Haku nodded, grateful to the blonde as Anko backed off with a huff. You're no fun, Naruto, you never let me screw with people anymore. She turned her nose up at the blonde in question, who just gave her a resigned sigh. Anko, if I didn't stop you from doing half the crap you do, most of the people in Konoha would be physically and mentally scarred by now. And for good reason, she growled. You and I both know most of the people in this village deserve a bit of payback for the way they treated you. Naruto, in a bit of tactful genius, changed the subject, pointing to Haku and Zabuza. So it's all right for them to stay, right? Anko frowned. He always did that sort of thing when she tried getting a bit of vengeance back for all the times the people of this village treated him like crap, but he'd have none of it and usually scolded her, actually scolded her for pulling the crap she used to do. All right, she sighed. She knew when to accept defeat when he was being stubborn, else they would just argue about it for the rest of the night. They can stay, but you owe me. She leveled a glare his way. Naruto shivered unconsciously at the look. What do you want, Anko? He was getting a bad feeling about this. I think it's about time we finalized a few things. She wiggled her eyebrows suggestively as Naruto gulped. He knew that look, and the way she licked her lips definitely tipped him off on what she was after. You too, she snapped, barking an order at Haku and Zabuza, who snapped to attention. You can take any of the rooms on the 3rd or 4th floor. The 5th floor is mine and Naruto's, and we're going to be busy for a few hours. So don't bother us, she giggled maniacally, or you'll regret it. She left that final threat in the air as she dragged a mumbling Naruto behind her to their bedroom. The two collapsed onto the sheets. Naruto on his back, Anko laying on his chest, the two gasping for breath, and it was several minutes before either were able to say anything. Holy shit, that was awesome. Naruto broke the silence, laughing in short gasps. Anko joined in his mirth. I was gonna say incredible, but that works too. The two chuckled again, enjoying each other's warmth, that is until she felt Naruto poking her, well, a part of Naruto poking her. She glanced down between their legs to see that his cock was indeed hard again. Hey, Naruto chuckled. Up for dessert, he joked. Anko stared for a moment before that registered, letting out a bark of laughter. She could only shake her head. Nah, we need to get up early tomorrow. I have to do a few things. And I know you have team practice as well. We'll save that invitation for another time. She playfully stroked him a couple times as he pulled the sheets up over them, Anko snuggling into his chest. It wasn't long after that both were sound asleep, sharing in each other's warmth for the night. Chapter 14. Buckling Down and Troublesome Women. Anko was having a wonderful day. Why, you may ask? Well, after their little love-making session last night, Naruto and Anko awoke in each other's arms, feeling beyond wonderful is the only way they could describe it, and now she was standing before the most greasy, foul-mouthed, and most importantly, tight-lipped prisoner she'd had in a while. Grinning widely, she got to work. It only took her 10 minutes to break him. Meanwhile, Naruto was having a wonderful day, for the now obvious reasons. He walked into his training ground with a shit-eating grin on his face, not even caring he was late, or that Kakashi was arriving at the same time. You're late, both of you. What the hell, Naruto? Sasuke grunted from his meditative position next to a tree trunk. I got lost on the road of life. The two men answered simultaneously, the two turning to stare at each other curiously for a moment. Anko? Kakashi asked. Anko. The boy nodded. Academy broom closet, he asked back. Academy broom closet. The Jonin nodded. The two stared at each other a moment before they bumped fists, nodding respectfully to each other before turning to the rest of their team who were looking at them like they were fucked up in the head. What? They answered simultaneously again, to the chagrin of the rest of their team. Okay, enough screwing around, Kakashi said seriously, the three genin in front of him tensing at his tone of voice. I know we just got back from Wave, but I called you here today to hand these out. He pulled 3 sheets of paper from his pack and handed it to his team. Chunin exams entrance form, Naruto asked, scanning over the document in his hand. Yes, I feel that the 3 of you are ready to take the exams, you have the teamwork necessary and your abilities are coming along nicely. He held up both his hands, fingers extended. You have 10 days until the exams start, that means a week for training and 2 days for relaxation before the test. He leveled a calculative eye on each of them. In that week you 3 are going to buckle down on teamwork. He turned his attention solely on Naruto. And you are going to teach them the second stage of their element training while I will supervise. Naruto frowned. I know that I was able to teach them the first step in their element training in the first month, but that doesn't mean they can learn the second or third stages of training in the next week. He rubbed his forehead in frustration. Hell, it normally takes 6 months for someone to even finish the first step, much less the others. The only reason I was able to finish the training in all my elements was due to my affinities and massive rape of Kage Bunshin. He leveled a flat stare at his sensei who was casually waiting for him to finish. And I sure as hell ain't teaching these idiots the Kage Bunshin, they'd be dead by the end of the day. Kakashi nodded his agreement, despite the other two huffing in annoyance. You're right, and I don't expect them to finish by then, but training more in their element gives them more options to work with, and in a week you could have them up to par with a couple of small jutsu to get them prepared. Kakashi and Naruto stared at each other for a moment before the blonde sighed. Alright, let's just get this over with. He formed a hand sign and created 100 clones, the large cloud of smoke filling the clearing. Kakashi coughed a couple times, swatting the offending gas away. You know, I don't think I'll ever get used to seeing that. Kakashi deadpanned, pulling out his Ika book and flipping to a certain page. Naruto ignored the open display of perversity and focused on his teammates. Alright, first off, he yelled, Sakura and Sasuke jumping to attention to pay close attention to him. After all, when Naruto made that many clones, he tended to put people through hell if they were ignoring him. Since this is the second stage of chakra nature training, he continued. You two are going to have to put some effort into this if we're going to get anywhere in a week. Hell, the first stage that you two completed in a month normally takes 6, this step here takes upwards of 2 years, and the final step is even more than that. He walked between his two protégés and placed a single hand on their shoulders. I don't expect either of you to complete the second stage of your element by the time the exams roll around. He squeezed Sakura's shoulder encouragingly while at the same time slapping a hand on the Uchiha's back. I do however think that learning a bit more control over your element along with a new jutsu that I'm going to show you will help make things a tad bit easier. Kakashi watched on as Naruto's words made their way through to his teammates. Sasuke looked excited, well as much as he could express anyway, about the fact he was going to learn more techniques. Sakura just had a small smile on her face and the tiniest glint of amusement in her eyes. Whatever the hell the blonde did yesterday had returned some of the fire to his teammate, something Kakashi was grateful for since he had never had to deal with this situation before. He was either in command of hardened ninja who were cautious enough to not fall to the fate, or was a loner and he sure as hell hadn't been almost raped yet, though that had been the basis of a few of his fantasies. A little perverse giggle filled the air as Naruto went over the process of learning the second step of their chakra nature training. Okay, Sakura, since you're our medic nin, this is actually a pretty important thing to learn. Naruto had her full attention. He smiled when he noticed that her eye held a bit more warmth to them than yesterday. Clearly her time with Ino after dinner had left a bit of a more positive feeling in her. Alright, watch closely. He pulled out a bit of moisture from the air and held it in his hand. Alright, most medic nins use water to draw out poisons, that means that those with water affinities tend to be poison removal experts. Naruto held up his hand and the water started swirling around in his palm. The first step was to teach you how to move water around, free-flowing and uncontrolled. This is the first step and allows you to move water to attack and defend, but it doesn't allow you to create things out of water like a water-style Suiryuden for example. He held up 2 fingers. That requires learning steps 1 and 2 and combining them together to make step 3. Naruto walked back to his original spot in front of them. Turning, he gestured with his left hand to his right, which was holding the water. Step 2 is simple really. The water in his hand suddenly found itself in a sphere in his hands. Control, or forming the water into a usable shape, usually a ball since that is the simplest geometrical shape, but he trailed off as the water, more slowly mind you, took the form of a pyramid, then a cube, then further and further until sweat started beading Naruto's brow. Finally, after he'd created a wonderful rendition of the Hokage Tower in water, he dropped the liquid to the ground as he gasped for breath. Sakura and Sasuke stared at him strangely. They had never seen Naruto that out of breath before, which could only demonstrate how hard this step really was. Naruto laughed when he noticed the looks he was getting. Yeah, Huff, it's kinda difficult, Huff, to control water, Huff. It's one of the most difficult base elements to control. It requires near-perfect chakra control to really be good at it. What do you mean? Sasuke asked curiously. Well, Naruto thought for a moment. Water is all based on how to move and control a free-flowing element. Fire is not often controlled, it's just blown from the mouth in jets, not much control for it. Earth is ridiculously easy to learn since the matter you are using is solid, it's mostly just moving it. Lightning is mostly just control rather than movement since lightning's nature is to move to the nearest object to ground itself. The only thing more difficult than water is wind. Wind is the most difficult chakra nature to learn. That's why there's so few wind users even when they have the affinity. Since wind isn't solid or even physical, it requires a lot of concentration to form anything from it. It also takes a lot of effort to control it and keep it in that shape while it's moving. However, even though it's the hardest to control, it is also the most flexible of all the elements. So what's lightning's second stage? Naruto held up both hands apart from each other. In between both a small charge of electricity arced and sustained itself, making it look like a chain of electricity was connecting his hands together. It's simple, Sasuke. The first step was control over lightning at pinpoints and only for an instant, like normal lightning. Releasing the energy, Naruto flipped through several hand seals and held his hand out, allowing a long beam of electricity to extend out of his hand. Lightning release. Thunder lance. See this? He held up the beam of energy that he held in the center like a javelin. For harder jutsu like this, you require a constant of lightning chakra flowing externally. This exercise allows you to do that, by teaching you how to create a circuit in your body which allows you to store the chakra and the control necessary to release the energy in a controlled way. For lightning jutsu that require the lighting to become a semi-solid weapon, this exercise is crucial. Sakura raised a questioning hand up. But if that were the case, couldn't you just practice something like that lightning lance and learn how to do that anyway? Why all the trouble going through this change in chakra nature when it doesn't seem that difficult to just learn a technique that would teach you that regardless just from use? Naruto smiled. Now there's a good question. To be perfectly honest, you don't really need change in nature training to get results in that nature. Every time you practice a jutsu of that element, you become more aligned with the element you are using. So you could say that using ninja techniques period is nature training. Then why go through all the trouble of learning how to do this? Naruto grinned. But that's the most important part, Sakura. For most people, they have no clue how to use their chakra natures to full effect, even techniques like this one here. He gestured to the thunder lance, which he then threw to pin it to a tree nearby. Require time and energy to learn without prior knowledge. So in essence, change in chakra nature training is a primer. A first step into learning how to fully control your element along with giving you helpful tips on how to control your jutsu of that element later. He held up 3 fingers. The 3 steps in nature training are about 90% of the rules for the jutsu of each element, so if you learn this you can be assured that you can quickly learn the majority of the techniques of your element or elements. So it's a shortcut then? Sasuke mused. Actually, Naruto laughed. It's more like the right way of learning your element. Everybody else is just doing it the hard way. And with that, Naruto started their training. With Sakura, he had her forming a small sphere of water between her hands, coaching her in focusing the water as perfectly as possible for the desired shape. For Sasuke, he forced the broody bastard into creating a link of lightning between his hands with several inches between his palms and fingers. The results were negligible. Sakura could barely control the water in her hands. Unlike just moving the water, actually trying to give it shape took far more concentration than the previous step. As it stood, the ball she held looked more like an undulating party balloon stretched thin and lanky. Sasuke wasn't much better. His first step had been based entirely on holding the charge internally to his body, only coming out of a single tenketsu in the tips of his fingers, which allowed him to use the lightning release, taser. Which in a way was just the culmination and application of the first step of lightning nature training that Naruto had adapted for his own personal use. This was on a whole nother level of difficulty. The strain of keeping a several-inch-long supercharged piece of lightning chakra active externally caused sweat to bead the last Uchiha's brow. Naruto had been sitting there watching the pair's progress while his clones were doing their own training, with 10 or so each going off to mess around with his base elements, 10 focusing on learning his Kenjutsu katas, which gained a bit more lethality thanks to a couple of lessons Zabuza had given him on the way back from Wave. So far the lessons were paying off. Another 10 had taken up taijutsu practice on the other side of the field, which Kakashi had taken a fair interest in, which didn't bother the blonde-haired genin much since his style was just an amalgam of the academy taijutsu and the snake style, good for quick strikes and getting back out more than anything. A good 20 of them had skulked off to practice his seals, which were coming along nicely. He had reached a proficiency in them to create a few seals on his own. Thankfully the old man had lent him some books on the subject after he had burned through all the ones he had bought from Tenten's dad. Soon. As for the last 20, he had been playing with the idea his teammates had given him before his mission to Wave, that of using his tail in combat. So far the results had looked promising. No, he couldn't swing a sword with his tail or throw fireballs around from them, but he could channel chakra through the appendage and with a little work do specific things with it, like touching the ground to send a small earth jutsu like a earth release, earth dome to raise a small wall around him in case of an emergency. That freed up his hands for something else, which, in the ninja world, was a lifesaver. And no, he couldn't use the tail to add a third element to his Kekkei Genkai, thus making a Kekkei Tota. He had thought to emulate the dust release technique of the second and third Tsuchikage. The results were explosive at best, and not the good kind either. The crater his clones had found him in half bleeding to death didn't bode well for any triple element jutsu, at least for now. He'd leave that avenue of thought open for future testing, but for right now he liked being in one piece and still breathing. Thank you very much. Unaware of their teammates' thoughts, Sakura and Sasuke were having different thoughts about both their difficult training and their surprisingly skilled teammate. Sakura was peeking glances at Naruto every so often when she felt she had a good grasp on the water sphere in her hand, for as soon as she took her concentration off the thing for a moment or two, the ball of water would start losing its shape entirely. However, thoughts were running through her head that she just couldn't shake. She had spent all of last night talking with Ino about her teammate. No, not Sasuke, surprisingly. No, it had been Naruto that had dominated the girl's thoughts. After her close call with that thug, Naruto had spent almost every moment as close as possible to her for the entire trip back from Wave, and in some strange way her affections for her teammates had inverted. Somewhere along the line her crush had shifted to Naruto while her beginning feelings of some sibling love had shifted to Sasuke. It was odd how her feelings had been flipped on their head like that, but watching how intently Naruto was watching the both of them, she couldn't help but shiver under that gaze. She hadn't noticed before, but his eyes held such power behind them. His cerulean orbs were as deep as the ocean and filled with as much vibrancy and the headstrong tendencies of a determined tidal wave, flowing forward, not stopping until it had bulldozed everything in its path. It was humbling to be looked at like that by someone she was beginning to hold feelings for. It wasn't like her crush for Sasuke. No, it was nothing like that with Naruto. Sasuke had always held her affection, but Naruto just exuded this calm that made her feel all tingly inside. Even now, when they were presented with the stressful news that in a week's time they would be possibly fighting to the death to gain the title of Chunin, it hadn't fazed the blonde one bit. If anything, he looked eager, almost as eager to be training them even, which was odd. For some strange reason Naruto delighted in helping people become stronger. She had seen him push Sasuke in class, using his abilities to move Sasuke along and actually get the Uchiha to open up to him, which up until that point no one had been able to do. Even now Sasuke looked up to Naruto. He would never admit it, but Sakura had spent enough time around the broody boy to know the tells of his posture and mood to know what he was thinking. Right now, he respected Naruto's strength and drive. And now she was beginning to feel the same. Ino pushing her and rubbing some of her fangirl off on her last night hadn't helped any. Although to be perfectly honest, Ino was a lot better off than Sakura was. She might not have had a month of Naruto's tour training, but she did take her training far more seriously since the beginning of the academy, thus becoming stronger than Sakura by a wide margin, and in her mind wasn't as much of a fangirl as she had been. A small glow of determination fired up in her eyes as she focused more intently on the roughly sphere-like object in her hand. If Ino had a better chance at Naruto, then she just needed to even the playing field. Maybe then she could make heads or tails of these feelings for him, just maybe. Sasuke on the other hand was starting to feel the burn, in the sizzling meat kind of way. Holding large amperages of electricity in and around your body tended to do that to you. But that wasn't the only thing on the Uchiha's mind. What really dominated his thoughts was how powerful Naruto was. An orphan gifted with an unforeseen bloodline, or in this case, cursed with one. Sasuke wasn't ignorant or self-absorbed like many people thought he was. He was just quiet and had a vengeful streak like the worst of them, but that came with the whole getting your whole family killed and being mind raped by a jutsu that made you relive your parents' death for 72 hours thing. But that wasn't important, at least right now it wasn't. As he said, he wasn't ignorant, nor was he ignorant of other people around him, especially the blonde mystery he had come to admire. No, he wasn't gay, though many of their fangirls had come to that conclusion several times. He really needed to talk with Naruto about that, but again he was rambling. As he stated before, he wasn't stupid, or self-absorbed, or ignorant. He had walked around town enough with Naruto to notice the glares people gave him when he passed by civilians. He had also heard and seen the whisperings and the rude gestures they had made as well. It was an eye-opening experience for the boy who was only a year into the academy at the time. Here he was, practically worshipped as kami by the populace, had everything he wanted but still felt empty inside. And here was a child who had the combined weight of the entire civilian populace's hatred pegged squarely on his shoulders, and yet he stood up to it, braving their anger and all with a wide, dumb-as-hell grin on his face. Hell, even in private when he'd seen a bit of that smile slip, he still looked happy, regardless with how badly he was treated. Just how did he do it? Regardless, Sasuke could say without a doubt that Naruto was one of the first and best friends he'd ever had. He pushed him to better himself, kicked his ass when he was being emo, and all around understood what the Uchiha was going through, and Naruto had only cemented that when he had made a vow of friendship when the blonde had knocked his arrogant ass on the ground back when they first met. And so far he had kept the damn promise to the bloody letter. It left him feeling strange, all warm and tingly inside, made him feel not so alone, that maybe he didn't have to live his life or take his revenge by himself. Just maybe. The three genin felt the weight of their thoughts fill the clearing as a calm silence echoed hollowly around them. Even Kakashi had stopped reading his book to fix them with an almost sad, no, more like solemn gaze. The rest of the training passed by fairly quickly. By the time anyone realized, it was almost nightfall. Saying their goodbyes for the day, the four members of Team 7 left for home, each having their thoughts weigh heavily on their mind. The next morning, a long line of thumps echoed across the clearing, each dull thud punctuated by a gleaming metal kunai burying itself several inches deep into a wooden practice dummy at the end of the field. For Tenten Higurashi, this was her relaxation time. The soft, subtle, musical bass of kunai on wood created a wonderful symphony for the girl and her throwing weapons. She had a fascination for all things sharp and pointy. If it could be used as a weapon, it was her prerogative, and she spent countless hours learning how to throw everything but the kitchen sink, and sometimes she threw even that to get an edge on her enemies. Life was good for the mouse-bunned girl. It was a quiet morning. The birds were chirping, the bugs were buzzing, nothing could dampen her mood. That was until one Naruto Uzumaki and Haku Momochi made themselves known. That's the path to Training Ground 6, and this is Training Ground. Oh, Tenten. Naruto blinked a couple times as he walked into the clearing, his mind registering the girl in front of him. Tenten smirked at the blank look he was giving her. Take a picture, it'll last longer. She giggled. Naruto facepalmed, which only made her giggle harder. Okay, so what the hell are you doing on this end of town, Naruto? And at this hour? It's only what, 6 a.m. Naruto shook his head a few times. I was just showing Haku here around town. She's new and is going to be a ninja for Konoha, so I was showing her around the training grounds. Also I'm out early because, well, Kakashi. He shrugged his shoulders as if that explained everything. It did. Tenten nodded, shaking her head at the one-eyed Jonin's bad habits before she turned a curious gaze on the woman next to him. She was older, maybe by a few years, not as tall, but she had an ethereal beauty to her. It couldn't help but leave the young weapons mistress feeling a tad bit jealous. So how you been, Naruto? It's been, what? Almost a month since we seen each other. She pouted a little bit. And is Haku your girlfriend? I remember you telling me you had a girlfriend, but you never went into details. Hey. Naruto suddenly looked a bit nervous at that. Haku is, well, he looked questioningly to the girl who only nodded. Yeah, you could say she's my girlfriend. Tenten's pout grew larger. Oh well, I just wanted to know since me and Neji haven't been working out. She lowered her head, sounding almost miserable. Naruto slapped his face again. You're not still on about that, are you? He let out an annoyed sigh. Tenten looked up sharply. And what the hell is that supposed to mean? You know as well as I do that if you'd have been single I'd have dated you. Out of everyone in the village my age, you're the closest thing to perfect that I'm looking for. She held up her hand, going through each finger in rapid succession. Smart, strong, kind, willingness to help others, and damn well handsome to boot. She put her hands on her hips and glared at the blonde. So you tell me. Naruto was speechless for a moment before a coughing Haku diverted his attention from the fuming Tenten. You didn't tell her, did you? It was more of a statement than a question. Tell me what? Tenten demanded, her voice still holding a sharp edge but now tinged with a small bit of curiosity. Despite Naruto shaking his head at her to stop, Haku continued. Dingus here. She pointed to Naruto. As a participant of the CRA, he can bloody well have as many women as he pleases. The council knows he has several bloodline traits and they've given him the green light to pursue as many women as he can. A tense silence filled the confined area, and slowly a dark miasma of energy seemed to radiate from Tenten. Naruto, she growled, just when were you going to tell me this, and why in all the hells you can name did you hide it from me in the first place? You could hear a bit of hurt in her voice, but her anger overrode it. I like you a lot, you dweeb, and I know for a fact you've checked out my ass at least a dozen times, so I know you're at least interested. Hell, the only reason I dated Neji was because you said you were taken. So why haven't told me yet, huh? The last bit she yelled in his face, and, him being whipped a bit by Anko, backed down under her fury. Look Tenten, I know you like me, I really do know that, it's just. He tried to mumble a bit more, but Tenten had pressed her face into his. Just what? She hissed, sounding quite a bit like the snake mistress at that moment. That you think it won't work? No response. That you're not worthy of me, or vice versa? Again nothing. Or is it because you think I won't like you after you spill your guts about that damn furball in your stomach? Naruto's eyes widened slightly, unaware of the fact she had already been told by her father about the Kyuubi early on. He flinched away from her slightly, averting his eyes. That's it, isn't it? It wasn't a question. She grabbed him by his shirt and hefted him off the ground, in that moment showing how damn good a physical instructor my guy was. You think I give a damn about what others think? I could care less about what any civilian or some bumpkin ninja thinks. And you know damn well I'm your friend. We've been friends for damn near 6 years now. Do you honestly think I'd hate you over something as trivial as that? Do you think I'm that shallow? Naruto hung there by his lapels, just taking the brunt of the girl's anger. Truly he didn't think she would hate him, but even now, even with Anko and Hinata being a guiding positive force in his life, he still had trouble trusting people. But that was just it, he did trust Tenten. So why did he keep that information from her? Was he scared of commitment? PFF no, he was already married to someone and going to be married to another not much longer from now. He'd already popped his cherry both physically and matrimonially. So what was the problem? Taking a moment to actually think about it hit him like a ton of bricks. There wasn't one. He had just been indecisive and hadn't thought about her feelings at all. With a fair amount of guilt heaped on his shoulders, he looked the angered woman dead in the eyes and did the only thing he could do. "Tenten, you're right. I didn't take into account your feelings. I was just caught up in my own problems and didn't want to have to deal with anything else until I had graduated, and by then I had completely forgotten to tell you. I'm sorry." Tenten stared at him for a moment before dropping him like a sack of potatoes, turning away from him as she did so. With a curse and a thud, the blonde hit the ground. It was quiet for a moment after that. Tenten turned back to address him, fire in her eyes. "All right, I believe you," she finally said at length. "But next time, if it's something as important as that, tell me." Naruto nodded, rubbing his injured rear and getting to his feet. "And for hiding that little tidbit of info from me, I think you owe me." She let out a little cat-like grin at the blonde. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. "And just what did you have in mind?" Tenten was about to say something when Haku leaned in and started whispering in her ear. A minute or so passed by. The only sound Naruto could hear, even with his enhanced hearing, muffled as it was under his hat, was the whispering and a few giggles the girls made, the grins on their faces growing wider and wider with each passing second. "All right, we've decided," Tenten declared. "To make it up to me, you'll be taking the both of us out for a date, then we'll both be discussing this marriage thing with you." The predatory grins they flashed would have made Kisame proud. Naruto's mouth went slack for a moment as he stared at them, then slowly but surely face met palm. "Oh great, now they're ganging up on me," he muttered. "First they're fainting and falling off cliffs, now they're guilt-tripping me. Fine," he grouched, walking over to the two women and offering them each an arm. "Let's get on with it. I still have like 3 hours until Kakashi gets his ass in gear." He began muttering about troublesome women as the two girls dragged him from the training field. Now he knew how Shikamaru felt. A few hours later. "Yonar, what the hell happened to you?" Sasuke choked out. Naruto stumbled into the training grounds looking like he'd gotten into a fight with a tornado in a lipstick factory. "Good things." The blonde giggled incoherently, a wide smile on his face. Maybe Shikamaru was wrong after all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.